Hello everyone, welcome to ADRA Asia's podcast, While on Earth. Hello everyone, welcome to another interesting episode of While on Earth, the podcast run by ADRA Asia. Here with me in our little makeshift studio is Mark Webster. Mark, who are you?
Hi, Prabhuk. I love that question. It's a great way to start because it's not that easy to answer.
I know, yes.
And I suspect that who I am depends a little bit on who you ask.
Okay, right.
But who am I to ADRA?
Mhm.
And we're here because we both work for ADRA.
Yes.
I think I'm a person who, from a relatively young age, always wanted to help other people
Right.
in some way. So I think I'm a helpful person.
Okay.
And I think that in ADRA I found other people who are also helpful people. And so, I've spent the last almost 30 years
Wow.
with ADRA trying to be helpful.
Right. Where did your journey in ADRA begin? Did you start in a country office? And what roles did you play?
I did start in a country office with ADRA as a volunteer.
Okay. How many years ago, if I may
So
ask?
it was 1996.
Wow, okay.
And actually, I have clear memories of that moment. I had been working as a volunteer for the church in South Korea as an English teacher. And I came back to Australia on holidays at the end of the year. And while I was thinking about what I wanted to do next, I saw an advertisement in the church newsletter. And they wanted a volunteer English teacher for ADRA in Laos.
Okay.
And I thought, that sounds like just the thing I want to do. And maybe nobody else applied, I don't know, but for sure they asked me to do it. And
Right.
a few months later, I was flying from Bangkok to Vientiane and about to start working for ADRA for the first time. And I had no anticipation that, almost 30 years later, I would still be doing that.
Right. And for the sake of our viewers, Mark, what do you do in ADRA now?
Well, and I guess that's the other part of who am I. So all of that trying to be helpful with ADRA has led me to currently be the Chief Strategy Officer for ADRA.
Okay. What are you passionate about, Mark?
Again, a great question that could have many answers. But the thing that I am most passionate about is helping people to create change.
Okay.
And not just any change, but positive change. And specifically the change that they want to see in their community, in their part of the world.
Okay. So if we may dig into that a little bit more, what are the elements that you work with? What are the factors that come into this whole process of helping people create change?
I think that there's a few different elements to it. Certainly, one of the things which I really love doing is working with people to facilitate a process where they can envision the kind of change that they want to see. I'm not a person who believes that the future is inevitable or preordained. I believe that we have, as human beings, the capacity to shape the future. To be the way we want it to be. And the first step of that is actually collectively, because it's very hard to change the future as one person. You can, but within a limited space. But to bring a group of people together and to envision a better future, a future that is something that is desirable, that is an improvement for the lives of people, and to bring an energy and an excitement and a commitment to let's create this future.
Right.
That for me is a very energizing thing, and it's the first step.
Right. And I imagine you are working very much with organizational change right now. What is the difference between creating this change in a community setup and in an organizational setup? Are there differences? Is the methodology as the same? What are your thoughts on that?
I think in general the methodology is the same.
Okay.
And I see them very much as linked in the sense that creating organizational change is a means to creating change in a community. The reason for an organization to exist, in my opinion, any kind of organization, not just a not-for-profit or a church or a business or a government, any organization, the reason it exists is, I think, to create some kind of positive outcome for people, which you could define as a change. In other words, if you took away the organization, that thing would no longer exist, the thing that it's delivering. And so helping people to organize is the thing that enables them to go and make any change that they see the need for in the future. And I think that a lot of that change happens through storytelling.
Okay. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more on that? Because I've not heard that before.
So we're humans, we're people, we talk to each other, just like you and I are talking now.
Right.
And when we talk, we tend to talk by telling stories.
Right.
Sometimes we tell facts, but most of the time we actually tell stories. Most of human communication is a story. And I think it has always been that way. It's something innate in what it is to be human. The stories that we tell inform the way we see the world. They inform our beliefs of what is possible, what is desirable. And they are a vehicle for creating change within the minds and hearts of people. And that's ultimately, for me, the only way change happens. It's a human-to-human transmission.
Okay.
It's like COVID, but in a good way.
Right. Okay. In terms of this storytelling and where it links to actually the change process. So the process that I've been exposed to, maybe the most common, is to have strategic plans, to have a very scientific approach where you analyze the problems. In projects we have theories of change. Where does this story element, if I may say, come into this strategic planning process or a process of change?
So it comes in at multiple levels. And all of those things are necessary elements of strategic planning, each of those things that you describe. They are at their most powerful when we are tapping into the collective stories that we tell each other about why the world is the way that it is and why it should be that way or why it shouldn't be that way. And I attended a lecture many years ago by a well-known development professional, and it doesn't even matter who it is. But the thing that stuck in my mind was something he said, which was that development only happens through the medium of one person connecting with another person and somehow convincing them that a different way is possible, or a different thing is possible, or a change could take place. And it stuck with me because we often think that it's our budget or our technology or our idea or our organization that creates the change, but it's actually the people within it and the relationship that they have with other people that enables that budget, that technology, that idea to actually spread and be something that's adopted. Let's just take a simple example. If you have a challenge in the community with unhealthy lifestyles, let's say, something that I worked on as a young volunteer with ADRA, people are smoking. And as far as they're concerned, smoking is a normal thing to do and something that has no harm for them. I might know and believe that that's not the case, and that smoking is very harmful and it causes cancer and many other health effects. The only way that I can create a change for those people is by engaging with them, by talking to them. And stories are a far more powerful way to do that than me just coming and saying, you know, this medical journal says that if you smoke, you're going to get cancer.
Right.
This is not a way of convincing people or touching their hearts and their minds in a way that creates change. They have to know me, they have to trust me, they have to believe that I'm somebody who has their best interests at heart. And we have to together create a story that's an alternative. And one which says that, okay, in this case, smoking is a thing that is bad for you. Right. So we change the world through our stories and through communication.
So something that came out through your example is that actually trust plays a big role in this change process, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really important in any change process because change is uncomfortable. Change brings uncertainty, and uncertainty tends to lead to anxiety. And when we are anxious, it's difficult to embrace new things or to let go of old things. That's a natural part of it. And so we need to know that we are not alone in that, and we need to know that there are people we can trust in any change process, no matter how small it is. It's something that if we're intentional, if we think carefully about what we communicate and how we communicate it and who we are, to come back to your first question, who we are to that person. Yeah. This is the way that we can be most effective in making the world a better place.
What are some of the key barriers that you've encountered or that you've seen in this change process?
Well, I probably touched on a couple of them already, and one is that change involves uncertainty, and it involves some discomfort. It involves stepping away from something that we know, even if we know that it's not a perfect thing, even if we believe or think there could be something better, it still involves stepping away from that. And moving to something that we don't yet know. And I think that naturally people are uncomfortable stepping into those spaces.
Right.
We like the familiar stories.
Yes.
In our lives. We like the things that we feel like we understand and that are comfortable. And so that's probably one of the barriers. And yet at the same time, when you sit down and you talk with people and you say, tell me a story about what the future would be like if there was no change.
Okay.
Tell me that story. I can guarantee you, every time I sit with people and we do that mental exercise, let's make up a story about the future, our future, in which there's no change. It's a negative story. It's not positive. It involves entropy and decay and things getting worse over time. Because as much as we are somehow drawn to the comfort of not changing, we recognize deep down that change is the only way for something to be alive, to be living, to be functioning, to be growing, is to change. And so we can then move from that place of being nervous about change or anxious about change or uncomfortable with change to recognizing that if there's no change, this is worse.
Yes.
So now let's tell ourselves a story about what change is possible. Let's think about what it could be like. What is that future that we could have? And as we tell that story to each other, we will build it, we'll grow it, we'll shape it. It will not, after some talking, be the same as it was when we started. and it will be something that we are capable of making into a reality.
Right. So as the Chief Strategy Officer for ADRA globally, you've worked on this concept to say that, we are cats in canoes.
Yeah.
The country office is very independent, everybody has their own scope, everybody is busy with their work. What are some of the challenges you're facing in managing and encouraging this change process?
Yeah, and that in itself is a story. You'll probably remember that we introduced the strategic framework by saying, let us tell you a story about cats in canoes. And, we don't have to fight so hard against the reality of how things are. But if our ultimate story that we tell ourselves when we talk, whether it's directly or indirectly, is that we are independent, we do our own thing, we don't collaborate or cooperate. Is that the story that we really want?
Right.
How could we change that story? What would be an alternative way of seeing ourselves? That would make sense. And I guess the way that at the moment, the new story, I guess, that I'm trying to tell is that, yeah, we can be cats in canoes, but we don't have to be cats in canoes who ignore each other, or who don't talk to each other, or who don't help each other. Cats in canoes can still do all of those things without fundamentally changing the nature of what they are. So we can be more helpful cats. We can be more enlightened cats. We can be cats that support each other in our canoes as we move together to find a better way of being the organization that we are as ADRA.
So thanks for sharing those challenges, Mark. What are the successes so far?
Great question. I like that you give me an opportunity to promote something.
Yes.
So coming up in the next few months, we're going to be sharing a report.
Okay.
That gives a sense of where things are progressing in relation to ADRA's strategic framework. And one of the ways that we've gone about doing that is that earlier this year, we reached out to the ADRA network and we said, tell us your stories. Tell us what's changing. Tell us what's happening. It doesn't matter if it's a good change or a bad change. Just tell us what you see changing and tell us why you think that that's significant or important. And so we have over 90 stories that people were willing to share with us. Now, our report is not going to contain all 90 stories, but we're going to highlight some of them. And I think the thing that I'll say it surprised me a little because I wasn't certain that I would see it there, but I'm happy that I saw it there, is that many of those stories raised two important themes. One was being intentional about strategy. And we didn't ask people to tell us that kind of story, but in many cases, there was a clear link between the change people saw happening and the intention to be strategic and to think about, the kind of future that we want to have. So we saw a lot of that in the stories, not all of them, but a reasonable proportion, at least a third, where people, saw that clear link. The second thing that got me a little bit excited was that there were a large number of stories that talked about an increasing collaboration, cooperation, connection that people in ADRA offices were seeing, and a desire to have that happen. Exactly what I've just been talking about with the cats in the canoes, collaborating with each other, working collectively to shared outcomes, supporting each other, sharing resources. So obviously not every story is a positive in that, and we're going to share some of the negatives too, because those are still important stories to tell. If the change path was easy or obvious, it would not be something that needed work. But I do see what I would say is positive signs that the ADRA network is really looking to become a more mature, more effective, more transformative version of itself.
Right. Thank you very much for that, Mark. I have one more question for you.
Okay.
If you had a superpower, what would it be and what would you use it for?
Yeah. Actually, this is the easiest question.
Oh, really?
That you asked me. Because for me, I've always known what superpower I want.
Okay, what is it?
I would love the ability to just instantly, without any effort and time spent learning, to be able to understand and speak to people in their own languages. And maybe that shouldn't be a surprise for somebody who is interested in telling and hearing stories.
Yes.
You know, and as somebody who comes from Australia and grew up in an environment where there was only one language in my family, in my school, in my church, in my community, it was English. That was it. There was not really an exposure to other languages growing up, and I'm always envious of people who speak multiple languages. But I would love a superpower where I can meet anybody and I can communicate with them without that language barrier and listen to their stories and share in that way.
Thank you very much, Mark, for taking time to be with us in the show, and we hope you will join us again in the future.
Thanks, Prabhuk. That would be my pleasure. And by the way, I love your show. I listen to all the episodes.
Have you subscribed to the ADRA Asia YouTube channel?
I have.
Ah, excellent. So I would also like to request everyone watching to subscribe to this channel and join us for another interesting episode on While on Earth. Thank you.